Mental focus or sharp precision shot? This is one of the more debated questions in the first Descendant community. Aside from the obvious convenience reason that you can let go of the fire button when using mental focus, there is no clear winner in this matchup. And yet, people are wildly claiming that one is definitely better than the other, without any further proof than they're feeling. In this video, we will dive deeper into this matter and prove by math which mod is better. A fair warning, this video will be math heavy. If you are here just for the result, feel free to skip to any segment in the video via the timestamp in the description. I'm Windy and this is the video series, The Math Behind the First Descendant. To start off the topic, let's take a look what each of the mod does. At max level, mental focus reduces your fire rate by 10%. For each bullet shot, you will gain 1% firearm ATK for 2 seconds, stacking up to 150 times. This buff will be removed upon reloading or switching weapons. To summarize, this mod can provide you a whopping 150% firearm ATK increase with only the penalty of 10% fire rate. Sounds really good, right? Well, the number can be deceiving since there is no weapon without any mod that can utilize the fully stacked buff, while only a handful weapon with ammo per mag mods can surpass the 150 ammo mark. And since the damage buff is stackable, it is hard to calculate how much exactly one will benefit from this mod. On the other hand, we have sharp precision shot. At max level, this mod reduces your fire rate by 20%. For each half second while holding the trigger, this mod will provide you a buff of 4% fire rate, 6% firearm ATK, and recoil reduction of 5%. This buff can be stacked up to 10 times, which means after 5 seconds you will have a buff of plus 40% fire rate, effectively only 20% because of the penalty, 60% firearm ATK, and minus 50% recoil. The advantage of this mod over the mental focus is that weapons like Tamer or Enduring Legacy can fully utilize the mag stacks even without the ammo per mag modification. However, the drawback of this mod is the lesser damage value per bullet and the fact that you cannot let loose of the fire button, which makes adds in boss fight a real threat. Since the mod is using stackable variants after a set of time, and firearm damage and fire rate increase, it is even harder to tell how much damage exactly you will gain from this mod. So which one of these two are better? And by how far? Well, this question is not easily answered, because we have two mods that works in two fundamentally different ways. However, in order to compare them in a way that benefit us players, we should define the term of the comparison. For us players, it is important how much damage we can deal in a set amount of time. It does not matter for us if you can deal 500k per shot, if you can only deal 1 shot per minute. So it also matters none if you can shoot 500 times in a second, but you can only deal 1 damage per shot. Does this sound familiar? Well, this is the concept of the term damage per second, or short DPS. In my opinion, the weapon's purpose is to deal as much damage as possible in a set amount of time, which qualifies the DPS value as a legitimate number to decide which mod is actually better. With this value in mind, let's take a look how the DPS is calculated. Traditionally, the DPS is not measured by looking at the damage you can deal in a specific second, but rather the damage you can deal in a rotation or cycle. That means, to measure the DPS, one has to consider the downtime of the rotation as well, such as cooldown, animation, or in our case, reload. And since shooting out the entire magazine plus reload is basically a damage cycle for any given weapon, we will define this as our time period. Our DPS will be defined by the entire damage we dealt, divided by the second we need to shoot out the entire magazine plus the following reload. And before we dive into our comparison and the math, there are two things I have to clarify. First is the way that the game calculates the damage of mods, and second is the fire rate. After some testings, I can confirm that the value provided by the mods are all additive. The firearm ATK and the fire rate increase, all of these are additive, which means if we are already using mods that gives us 93% firearm ATK, we have to add the increase from our mods on top of it, not multiplying it. The same goes for the fire rate decrease or increase. And secondly, the fire rate. Did you ever notice that the fire rate numbers are off? For example, if you use the mod fire rate up, which gives you plus 25% fire rate, and you have a fire rate of 100 RPM, you would end up with 133 RPM. This also happens with the 20% fire rate mods, which will actually give you 25%. These numbers are just simply wrong if you phrase it like that. The phrasing should be like, the fire rate difference from the final RPM number is minus 20%. Now you're asking, what? Well, let's do an example. If your fire rate is 200 and you increase it by 25%, you would have a fire rate of 250 RPM, because 200 multiplied by 1.25 is 250, right? So where does the 20% come from? If you have 250 RPM and you remove the mod, you would have 200 RPM. Again, how many percent did you lose? If you calculate it correctly, it's not 25%, but rather 20%, because 50 is a fifth of 250 and a fifth is 20%. This is where the 20% displayed on the mod comes from. Weirdly phrased, but we have to keep this in mind when we define the fire rate. With these two disclaimers out of the way, let's begin our calculation of DPS. And since the Enduring Legacy is currently popular as never before, let us use it as our weapon of choice in this calculation. The mod setup for our experiment will be Rifling Reinforcement, which gives us 32% firearm ATK, Action and Reaction, which gives us 61% firearm ATK, and Fire Rate Up, which grants us 25% fire rate. We will also use the mod Expanded Weapon Charge to boost our mag capacity to 171 bullets. And for the realism, we will also calculate a reload penalty of minus 8%, because most of us will use the mod Concentration Priority. Now let's have a look on this chart, and feel free to pause for any specified value. This chart shows us the damage dealt for each bullet in percent, the accumulated damage, and the time when the bullet is fired when using mental focus. Yes, every one of the 171 bullets. Let's do an example. The 20th bullet will deal 109.84% of the damage of your first bullet. The weapon dealt a total damage of 2098.45% from your first bullet. After 150 stacks, the damage will stop increasing. When we scroll down the list, after the 171 bullets are empty, the damage the weapon dealt in total was 24,511%, and the time needed to empty the magazine was 15.1 seconds. If we add the reload time of 3.51 seconds to the 15.1 second shooting time, we will end up with 24,511% damage in 18.61 seconds, which results into a DPS of 1,316%. That was the easy part, since the increase of damage from bullet to bullet is the same, and the fire rate is also constant. If you have any questions how any of this number is calculated, leave me a comment and I will try to answer as good as I can. Now comes the difficult part. The chart shows the damage dealt per bullet if using Sharp Precision Shot. On the right side, you will see the number of stacks gained by the mod, and the correlated fire rate in RPM. After each 0.5 second, a stack is added. After reaching 5 seconds, we reached our maximum number of stacks. From this point on, all the damage is going linear. We will finish our magazine by the time of 11.19 seconds, with a total damage of 21,408%. Adding the 3.51 seconds reload time, we would end up with 21,408% damage in 14.7 seconds, which is equivalent to 1,456.71% DPS. Compared to the mental focus, the Sharp Precision Shot deals roughly 10.5% more damage per second, and the damage difference would be even bigger without ammo capacity mod. I also calculated this for other weapons like the Python, with Gley's infinite ammo ability for 10 seconds, and the result would be the same. The Sharp Precision Shot just deals more damage than the mental focus. Again, if you have any questions how the numbers are calculated, feel free to leave a comment. For example, how is the exact timing of the bullets calculated? Or how is the damage increase calculated? Just feel free to ask. Math is difficult. So what is the conclusion? Well, first, please do not use the Sharp Precision Shot or Mental Shot if you have a low ammo capacity weapon, unless you are Gley. And please do not run around with a single shot or burst weapon using Sharp Precision Shot. With this said, if we only compare the damage output, the Sharp Precision Shot has the advantage over the mental focus. But if you feel more comfortable because you can let go of the trigger and you enjoy the overall more forgiving playstyle of the mental focus, you are welcome to play whatever you are comfortable with. And also note that sometimes the other special mods can provide a better alternative than these two mods. Furthermore, the damage per second is just one way to measure damage. If your resources are limited and your time is unlimited, and another way to compare the damage is by damage per shot. If you compare the total damage regardless of the time period, the mental focus has a higher damage output than the sharp precision shot. So please consider these factors as well before you invest into one of these mods. To close off the video, I want to thank you for watching this video. I recently reached 100 subscribers and I have not thought that quite few of you enjoys math like I do. I started this video series to prove that HP is better than defense, and now we are diving deep into damage calculation of adaptive fire rates. Yeah, thank you for watching, and see you next time.